Hey Kev, how we doing?
Good. How are you, Don?
Not too bad. Maura, are you there?
Hi.
Hey, Mora.
Hi. How we doing?
Good. Sorry about that.
No, that's no problem. I can explain it here. We can actually kind of get going. I think that there's other people. I just invited Meg Gagne from Colchester, and hopefully she'll be joining us. Let me just real quick. I want to make sure that I give the right email, and then we'll kind of get going. You guys have the Life's on there too. Hey, Life, how's it going?
Good, how are you?
Good. And we have everybody's audio seems to be working. That's also good. So I'm just gonna invite one more person here, and we'll see if we can't get going. Okay. So welcome everybody to this is our fifth PLP Pathways webinar of the year. It's our first one of 2016. Thanks very much, everybody, for joining us. We'll go through and do introductions in just one second. But I hope everybody's doing well. Maura and I actually met the other day, and we had an interesting talk about evidence and also about the middle grades conference that happened on January 9th. Both of those are on the agenda for today. And before we go any further, I'd like to thank the Middle Grades Collaborative for supporting the PLP Pathways project, and also the Tarrant Institute for the great work that we're doing. For those of you who, if there's anybody out there who's viewing us for the first time, I'm Don Taylor from Main Street Middle School in Montpelier. And if the rest of the panel could introduce themselves, that would be great.
I'm Maura Kelly. I'm a teacher at Pupils Academy Middle Level.
Hi, I'm Kevin Hunt. I teach over at Wilson Central School.
I'm Life Lagueros, Professional Development Coordinator at the Tarrant Institute, working with Washington West Supervisory Union mostly.
All right, so one of the challenges that we're going to have today is that I actually have to step out early. I have a commitment at 4, and I started the PLP Pathways, the webinar, from my computer. So if I close up my computer and that's the end of it, that's the end of it. And that'll happen at about 4 or a little bit after 4. Also on the, so if you look at the agenda, I sent you guys the agenda. But if you look at the agenda, we also had John Craig on the list, and John is the assistant principal or the curriculum coordinator. I think he's both the curriculum coordinator at Hazen Union High School in Hardwick, and he did an incredible project with PLPs, identity in the community, and that was the focus of a Tarrant Institute blog that happened last week. I reached out to John and asked him to do a summary blog post, which he has done, and I'm going to be putting that on the PLP Pathways website as soon as I have the time to do that. What's really interesting about that is that there's a video that it looks like the kids produced that kind of goes over all the steps and how they came to that project, and it's really good work. And so I'm hoping that at some point John can be featured on this webinar, and that we can reach out to him not only as a resource, but as somebody who's doing really great things with PLPs and personalization. Just really quickly, can we go around and where are people? If you just want to give me a review of kind of what you're doing and how things are looking at school, and then we'll go from there.
Sure, I can jump in. So right when we got back from break, we kind of took some time as a team to go over, what are the goals that students set, since a lot of our students set long-term goals. And we really wanted to sort of stop and sort of reinvigorate our goals to make sure that it's something that we're still working on. So we had students make a chatter pick. We used chatter picks that they had 30 seconds to tell us about where they're at with their goals. We had students who have been doing really well with their goals present to the whole team in our town meeting on Fridays. And we shared some of the teachers, like I changed one of my goals, and so I talked about what the process was like changing my goal. And so we really tried to help students make sure that the goals that they're working on are sort of just right goals for them. The other thing that we did, we're in humanities class, we're studying citizenship, and we're looking at the Constitution and rights and responsibilities. And so actually after a conversation that Don and I had, my students made citizenship goals today around the rights and responsibilities of being a U.S. citizen and being a citizen of Morrisville and of our school. And so these are going to be goals that they're going to work on over the course of this next month. So it's going to be a shorter goal, and it's going to be part of their sort of learning throughout this unit.
Awesome. Life?
So yeah, all the schools in Washington West are really turning a focus to transferable skills.
Mm-hmm.
They spent the first part of the year, introducing PLPs and getting students blogging and thinking about goal setting, and now they're really taking a look at the transferable skills as a way of helping students think about their growth. And some schools like Crosset Brook are going to use those transferable skills to set new academic goals.
Mm-hmm.
And so at Crosset Brook, the first part of the year, a lot of this work lived in an advisory period, which ended up being a little bit tough because it wasn't really that much time. So they were having a hard time getting in depth on things and building momentum. So now the work has moved within this academic goal setting kind of lens onto their core teams, which is great because the teams are able to work together to think about how to roll it out. We've drawn heavily on the work from PLP Pathways, including the work of Kevin and Dawn. Dawn actually met with me and the librarian at Crosset Brook, Jen Hill, and laid out his process that he uses at the beginning of the year, and was very generous sharing many of his slides, which we quickly stole. And so we
made it better. You made it better, Life, and I'm stealing it right back. I'm using yours next year, so that's good.
We tried to take Dawn's process and kind of distill it into like 3 lessons, which was a little ambitious, but it's most schools have most teams have been able to pull off doing a lesson around mindsets and another lesson around transferable skills, and then a third lesson where students are setting goals. And then the topic for this webinar is perfect because people are going to be trying to gather evidence and reflect throughout February, with an eye towards having a lot of things to draw from for student-led conferences at the beginning of March.
All right, Kevin?
We're actually just wrapping up the end of our trimester 1 conferences, so I know I have a couple more families to meet with where they're all student-led conferences, and the kids have been taking us through their portfolios, showing their 5 different goals, which are transferable skills. And those have been going really well, so we're wrapping those up, and as we're wrapping those up, we're really just diving in right now again to collecting evidence for trimester 2, and every week we have students put in 1 to 2 new pieces of evidence, reflect on how it connects to their goals, and they just do a weekly, we set up as a blog page on the portfolio site, so they just do a weekly blurb for each goal to say just how are they working on that this week, or what are our first next steps to making progress on it if they haven't done so already.
So I just have a question about that, because so when you say that it's a blog about within the website, is that correct?
Yep.
And so how does that work? It's just like a page on their site, and they what's the setup like?
Yeah, so we use Google Sites as our platform, and when you create a Google site, you can do it as a web page or an announcement page or a file cabinet. So all of their goal pages are set up as web pages, and when we go on, they have one tab up there, and I can pull one up later if you guys would like to see it. We have one tab that just says Goal Reflections, and that's set up as an announcement page, which is essentially a blog. So when we have our initial conferences at the start of the year, I email them out on a table. There are 5 different goals that fit each of the transferable skills categories, and then each week they just copy and paste that table into a new announcement post with the week's date. So like this week they would put on, they did it today, they just put 1/28/16. And then underneath each one of their goals, they just kind of write a quick comment, a sentence or 2 about what they've done in the week. And that's just kind of, it's embedded. Every Wednesday we give our students 30 minutes that's just designated to PLP time within our core meetings, which for us is like an advisory system.
Got it. Okay. And do you think that works more effectively than doing a blogger? Like, do you know what I mean? You have yours embedded right in the site,
Right.
right? And our kids go outside to Blogger. And what's the advantage of your system?
We were talking about Blogger. I think we like this just because it's part of Google Sites, and it's an easy thing to just, once you start a new announcement page, it's all the way up on the page. So the newest ones are at the top, and then they just kind of filter down. Bloggers, we use Blogger in various classes, and I just think in terms of our functionality with it, it's been easier to use the announcement page than it is to try to set kids up on a Blogger who aren't familiar using it. I do love like the functions on Blogger, like the tags and everything, but for how we're using it right now, the announcement page just seems to be pretty seamless.
Do you find? Oh, sorry.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Do you find that students are primarily putting evidence in writing, or is there the functionality to put in like images and sort of all different types of evidence on that?
Yeah, so we encourage students obviously embed the documents that show everything, but we're as soon as we do a lesson or have an assignment, or if we're just having a conversation, the students like, oh yeah, I baked brownies with my mom last night. So we'll take a picture of what you made,
Right.
put it in for your integrative thinking skills, because that's one of your goals around that. So it is a variety. We have students that embed pictures, videos of projects that they've done. They embed their slides, and we really encourage them. Like, we don't want to see any links. We just want to see
The stuff.
embedded documents, and really most of them do more images and things, especially for like the self-direction goal. A lot of students will take pictures of their planner, or will take screenshots of the Google Classroom to show how they're managing assignments, and then they just write like 1 or 2 sentences above the image saying, this shows, this connects to my goal because, and they go on to elaborate.
Nice.
Now, can you search you can't search the announcements though with labels and tags, right?
Correct.
Okay, so that's one drawback, but I like the idea of that announcement page. That's a good idea. All right, so go ahead, yeah.
Don, can I just mention? I see that you noticed John Craig. You got him invited.
Yeah, I don't know what's going on because I just invited 2 other folks, and I'm hitting the share button on the top, and I'm not sure why it's not going through. Like, they should be joining the call. Does anybody have a troubleshooting tip on that? I'm just going to go out to the help here for a second, and just let me just see here. Okay, well, oh boy. Are you guys still there?
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, sorry. Hold on one second. All right, I'm not sure why they haven't joined the call, and I apologize. John Craig, if you're watching, I'm trying to get you on the show, and I'm not sure why it's not working. But I did give you props earlier. So what I wanted to talk a little bit about today, we've talked about goals a lot, and if you looked at the feedback from the middle grades collaborative, it seems that every time there's a discussion about PLPs, kind of goals comes up all the time, right? And we've also been talking about evidence, and one of the things that Maura and I were discussing the other day is the different kinds of evidence there are, because I'm a little bit dissatisfied with the way that evidence is being placed on the PLP, because I think that a lot of times it's driven by teachers and the organization. And when I say organization, I mean like the school. Like, this is what we think you should be good at. This is what we're doing in class. This is what should be on your PLP. And I'm wondering how people, and actually I've kind of broken this down, and I don't, I'm kind of just out in the weeds doing this stuff, but I've kind of broken it down into, there's evidence that's teacher driven, that, hey, we just spent a long time writing this argument paper and you should put this on your PLP. There's evidence that the teacher is, that the student is putting on that may be related to the course, but it may not be related to the course, and it may not be related to a goal. So, for example, they might do an extension activity, and that extension activity ends up being somewhere you didn't think about, like a video, an instructional video, or 3D printing. They put that on there, but again, it's not related to a specific goal. They might also have a picture or a video of something, extracurricular activity, and again, that's student-driven. And And then there's this fourth category, I guess that's most interesting to me, which is the incidental but important evidence, where they can be putting evidence on there that is just, maybe they're a good artist and they created something, or maybe they had a high score on a video game, and they put some evidence of that. And I'm wondering how people are encouraging students to be selecting their own evidence, and what skills or frameworks they have for picking that evidence. I know we've talked about reflection, and I think reflection needs more discussion. But how are we actually guiding kids and helping them self-select evidence that's going to demonstrate their growth through the personal learning framework?
So I can kind of talk a little bit about, I think for us, we view the PLP, the site that the students have, as the performance piece. So the hope is that they have many different pieces of evidence for one goal, and then when it comes time for a student-led conference or something like that, they would then be selecting the best examples. So not all of the examples of evidence, but just the best examples to highlight their growth in their process. And so in doing that, they'll have a variety of different types of evidence. So it might be stuff that they selected, it might be something that I suggested they include because I know what their goal is. It could be something else. And so that's been really helpful to have them just be blogging the whole time, throwing all their evidence, everything on the blog, and then through their labels, they're organized. So when it comes time to do sort of one of those share outs or round tables, they then are able to select the evidence that they think best shows them meeting their goals in the journey, so that it's not totally teacher driven, and it's kind of, we're able to compromise on some things. Another thing that we've done is we've gone through and we show student examples weekly of students' portfolios that they're doing, goals that they have. One of our students' perseverance goals is to fold 1,000 paper cranes, because she tried previously and she got to 500 and quit a year ago, and so now she's doing it. And so now in our rooms we all have paper cranes hanging all over our rooms, and we talk about it a lot, like, remember how hard this was, and this is a student who's working on it. And so we try and have visible reminders of people's evidence around, so that we can sort of talk to it and help guide students, which has been really helpful.
Okay. Leif, how about you?
I totally agree with what Maura just said. I mean, I think that the accumulation of evidence can happen, you know, total student-driven, teacher-driven, anywhere in the middle, and that's why I like the idea of a place like Blogger that you can use as a messy sandbox, that you just throw anything in there, and it's very low stakes. Like if your teacher tells you to put something in there and you're like, that's kind of lame, big deal. You put a blog post in and you never look at it again. But I think that piece where they're doing the curation, or whatever you want to call it, is they're actually figuring out what they want to highlight and talk about on their PLP. That part, I would say, that should be totally student-driven. And at that point, they realize, oh, actually, that project my teacher told me to put on there is a great example of something. Then they've re-engaged with it, and it's solidified their learning, and they've had this, you know, whole nother piece. And if they don't look at it and they only pick stuff that they had selected in the first place, that's great too. But they just want to have you want to have enough things at that point that they're doing some thinking about which evidence best shows their growth and what they're interested in talking about.
Okay, Kevin?
Yeah, so for us, we try to keep it completely student-driven in that, like on that Wednesday time that we have, it's just go find some evidence, put it in for your goals. And what's really helped us this year that we hadn't done in the past is every time they put in a piece of evidence, they're required to write down how it connects to their goal. So come conference time, we don't get to them showing their parents and being like, this really has nothing to do with the goal, but it's good work. We asked them, like, why'd you put this in? They're like, I have no idea. So it's taken that out of the equation. It's actually put the accountability on them, and it's been really great because they just have this time to look through what they've done, look at their goals again, and then say, okay, I think this is a good piece. During class, like if I'm saying, okay, guys, look at this writing rubric before we go ahead and do our summative, I might say, for those of you that have a goal around using rubrics to help you write, this might be a good piece of evidence to use. So it's like, instead of saying use this piece of evidence, we'll in our day-to-day classes, we'll say, this could be evidence if you would like to use it, which I think, like Maura was saying, it helps more guide the kids versus saying you have to have A, B, and C on your portfolio. And that's been really helpful for us. So it is completely student-driven. They have complete ownership of what they're putting on. It's just been really helpful to have them write on how it connects to the goal that they're putting it under.
And I guess, how long would you say it took you to get to that place where the expectation is an understood thing within your class? I mean, is that something that just comes with your team culture, or is that something that you have to build every year? What does that look like?
It definitely is rebuilt every year, but and I say this all the time, I'm very fortunate to be on this team. Swift House has been doing PLPs for about 25 years, and just since I've gotten on, I've just helped it become electronic. They used to just all be in portfolio binders, so actual physical binders. So it's part of our culture, it's embedded in our culture, and we're all standards-based, and we have been, and everything kind of dovetails that way. So I'm incredibly lucky that we're at a phase right now where we're just trying to tweak it and enhance it, and every year is just kind of revamping, saying, how can this be more accessible, more engaging for kids?
Okay.
Can I talk about quality of evidence for a second?
Absolutely.
So one of the things that I find can be really challenging is, one, the student gets to the end of the week and you ask them what they've done to work on their goal, because we reflect every Friday, and they're like, haven't really done anything. And so, that's why it's so important to set those really meaningful goals. But one of the things that we've really started to do is to have students interview each other, or like they collect their evidence and they do their writing, and then we'll say, okay, now you have to go share that with a partner. And so then the kids are giving each other feedback on the quality of the evidence, and it's giving them that accountability from a peer as opposed to just a teacher. And they learn so much from each other, and they help guide each other to find their passions, and so that's been really helpful. And they can remind each other too, like, remember that thing we did in math? This might fit. Because a lot of times they know more about what their day really looks like than their teachers do.
So you partner them up, or do you put them in, like, what does the grouping look like?
Sometimes we'll just say, okay, find someone at your table. Other times we'll purposefully match them. It's not always consistent. It's not like your portfolio buddy every week, but it seems to work really well.
Okay, cool. Well, this is so typical. This is a great conversation, and I've got about 10 minutes left. And just so you guys, well, it doesn't really matter, but I'm actually doing some professional development with personalized learning, which has been good. But I have a commitment now on Thursday evening, so we may have to, in the future, we may have to start this just a little bit early, because I really value these conversations, and I'm already hearing things that I'm going to think about, like that small group gathering evidence. That sounds like a dynamite process or technique. And I guess I mean, personally, in my teaching, what I'd like to see is examples, or if you guys have like a lesson plan of how you're collecting evidence, or the process, or the frameworks. Any of those protocols are certainly going to help me continue to kind of grow that evidence piece, because I've been thinking about that quite a bit. I just want to talk about two more things quickly, and before we do that, I have a technical question. Maura, are you seeing on the bottom of your screen, do you guys see a stop broadcast, or is that just me because I originated it?
I think it's just you.
Okay.
I don't know why it wouldn't let me do it. I'm really sorry.
Well, it's no big deal. Like, the problem with the Google Plus is great, but this is a little wiggy. I've just sent out a bunch of invitations again. John Craig, I apologize. I'm not sure why I can't get you on the call, and Megan Gagne as well, and I'll just have to figure that out.
Hey, Don.
I wanted to.
Hey, Don.
Yes, sir.
Can I just mention one possibility is that we've somehow reached our limit on people who can be in the live hangout. So I'm just going to drop out just in case.
Okay.
And then John can try to get in here.
Okay. Can you just text him or let him know that we're trying that? Okay.
Yeah, thank you. Susan Hennessy's in touch with him on it. So I'm going to sign off. I'll just say on that last piece you're talking about, I am working on a little lesson plan that will have some pieces around the evidence collection, and I'm drawing on this this blog that does a lot of visual learning and blogging by a woman, Sylvia Tolosano. It's called Languages,
Okay.
which people might have seen. So I'll put something together and definitely share it back with you as well.
Yeah, and if you could send me the link to that blog, I'll put it out on the PLP Pathways. That'd be great. And
Awesome.
the other thing, too, I want to mention before we get going here is if anybody has material, and I know Kevin has material that he sent me, I would be happy to post it. I'm a little bit behind on my posting, but anything that I can put on the PLP Pathways to continually help teachers across the state and anybody who's paying attention would be great. So the last two things that I want to talk about are, number one, I have a question. What do you think teachers really, we've got some evidence back from the Middle Grades Collaborative. If you could sum it up or boil it down, what do you think would be most helpful for teachers at this point, and how would it be delivered?
I mean, I think most helpful, the first thing that I always hear come up with teachers is, where am I going to find the time for this?
Mm-hmm.
But I think just this whole idea of using transferable skills and kind of having that as the broad range, so the evidence that you're doing in your various content classes is used to fuel the evidence for the transferable skills, and then you can provide evidence outside. Now, I think that's really important, just showing how it can work within the time that we have, and talking maybe about if you need a structural change, what that would look like, because I know not everybody has like a morning meeting or core or advisory, which I think that's where the relationships start, and that's a really essential piece to this whole process. That's where I would start, is, you know, how can we find the time for this and give kind of different explanations and avenues of what's worked in other schools and what hasn't worked.
Yeah, that's a great idea. So what you're saying is tell teachers to start focusing on the transferable skills, because those move across the curriculum, and that students could be finding evidence of those in every aspect of their schooling. That's a really good way of putting it. That's a great idea. Maura?
I think, to piggyback, I think having example schedules would be really helpful. And I think we're at a really nice point, because I think the PLP has the opportunity to help push some changes that, you know, are middle level best practice, and they require some organizational shifts, but really are going to make learning so much more meaningful to students, and that's going to require schedule changes from a traditional schedule potentially. And so I think that's really would be really helpful. But I also think teachers being able to see a variety of different types of PLPs from different types of students, and hear how maybe reluctant learners have been able to become engaged in the PLP. What happens to the kids who are like, oh, I don't want to do this, why are we doing this right now? How do you get those kids hooked? Because those are the ones who really are going to benefit the most.
Yeah, those are both great ideas, and I'm just wondering if we could, on the PLP Pathways, have some way of either little interviews, short videos with teachers describing how they work it into their system, or even, you know, like a table or a spreadsheet identifying where in their day they're doing the PLP work. Those are both great. Thank you very much for that. The last thing that we're going to talk about, and again, I apologize, although going home a little bit early these days is not a bad thing. I have a question, and this question is not something that I want. It's somewhat rhetorical, but I'm wondering if people are thinking about the PLP driving some of the curriculum choices that teachers are making. And I'll just give you a quick example. I was presenting to another group of teachers about the PLP, and I was talking about relationships and how we deal with a relationship with kids. And then I was thinking also that I'm starting to teach the Odyssey next week, and about how the basis of the Odyssey, or a lot of it, is the relationship between Penelope and Odysseus, right? And, you know, why does Odysseus choose to come back after 20 years? Why does Penelope wait for him? What are the principles and values that both display as they go on this journey? And I'm wondering if by thinking about the PLP driving some of the curriculum choices, you know, Maura talked about citizenship, and we just did a unit on democracy in ancient Greece. If we can't start making connections more explicitly between, you know, some of the history and the literature and these big ideas that we want reflected in the PLP. And it's just an idea that I have, but a curriculum that's designed, you know, with these big ideas. goal setting, challenges, resilience built into it, so that it dovetails even more closely with what we want our kids to be good at as they move on into high school. I don't know if you guys have thoughts about that right now. We have about 2 minutes left. What do you think about that?
Well, it certainly sounds amazing. I think that would be an incredible idea for curriculum, and I know at this level too, like relationships at the middle level are everything. I think it's important that when we are thinking about how this is driving our curriculum and what it means, it as you said, I think it could change a lot in a positive way.
Right. It could be, and the other aspect of it, as you mentioned, is it could be developmentally appropriate, and so you could be, for example, picking text sets that would really highlight relationships or characters who go through difficult challenges, and then it'd just be easier to relate sort of to the kids, but through the PLP. And again, it's just an idea. I'm just mulling it and just thinking what the implications would be for planning and implementation. And then Maura, any thoughts?
Yeah, I think it comes back to the conversation of the importance of student voice in the middle level. I think we need to offer students opportunities, to front load the information, the core concepts, and then have them really design independent learning and thinking about, how do we plan with our students and help them achieve their goals. I think there's some really great models of that's been happening, but really how do we allow for sort of democratic learning to happen?
Yeah, that's a big one. That idea of democratic learning. I'm just reading Experience in Education with John Dewey, and that's what he talks about, right? If we're going to be living in a democracy, maybe we ought to be teaching in one too. But again, thank you guys very much. I really appreciate your efforts, and I always enjoy these conversations. I believe our next one is soon. I think it's February 18th, the Thursday before break. Yep. And I'd like to talk more about evidence and this curriculum issue, and maybe we can also start talking about, maybe we'll talk about growth mindset a little bit too. And to folks out there who tried to get on the call and weren't able to, I really apologize. It was a technology issue. We'll try and get that ironed out. Again, John Craig at Hazen Union School has done some amazing work, and we'll be featuring that on the PLP Pathways blog. And just really appreciate everybody's hard work, and I hope everybody enjoys the weekend, and we'll talk to you soon.
All right, thanks, Don.
Okay, thanks, guys. Take care. Have a nice day.
Bye.